Scary abandoned amusement parks. Today with a creepy topic, guys. I hope you're doing well. My name is Mats. We are the Hey Squad. This is the channel HeyMats, and let's go.
15. Nara Dreamland, Japan. If the huge castle at the entrance, the artificial mountain, and the main street full of stores...
Oh, here are graffiti like on every wall. I'm a huge fan of amusement parks. So this topic is really interesting for me.
And games of Nara Dreamland.
Who likes amusement parks too? Write in the comments, guys.
Familiar. That's because in 1961 it was intentionally opened as Japan's answer to the Disney theme park in California. Built near the city of Nara, it was an immediate success and at its peak attracted almost 2 million visitors per year. Things began to take a downturn, however, when the Tokyo Disneyland opened in 1983 and subsequently Tokyo Disney Sea and the Universal Studios Japan, all within 30 miles of Nara Dreamland. And visitor numbers plummeted to such an extent that in 2006, after being open for 45 years, it was forced to close. Even by that time, there had been so little investment in the maintenance of the site that rides were beginning to rust, and the castle itself had been declared a safety hazard. And for the next 10 years before it was fully demolished, it became more like a nightmare land. With nature.
Yeah, and of course the rests are still there to see, because of course it's very expensive to get rid of all these things, so it's cheaper when you just do nothing. And so yeah, I think there are a lot of ghost town hunters, you know, those people who are always like looking for lost places, and this is like a paradise for lost place hunters. Yeah,
nature beginning to reclaim the site. It was covered in foliage growing through the paving stones and the tracks of the rides. The buildings began to crumble, and rust took hold everywhere you could look. Because of its history and the way it had been left, Nara Dreamland became a popular...
And you cannot refurnish that or something like that. You have to build it completely new because you cannot use it. Safety is #1 in amusement parks, and you cannot guarantee the safety when these like things are that old, you know?
Site for urban explorers, but because of the increasing risk someone might seriously injure themselves as they walked through the decrepit structures, there was no choice but to remove what was left entirely. Number 14. Dinosaur World, Arkansas. Most of us grew up hoping that one day Jurassic Park would become a reality.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe as a kid it would be funny, but in general, I think it's not a funny thing when Jurassic Park would be happen in reality. Yeah, because T-Rex are not that harm. They can do very scary things, and they can hurt you.
But did you know there was already an amusement park that had long-extinct monsters on display? Known as Dinosaur World, it was opened in 1967 in Beaver, Arkansas, and when it opened, the 65-acre site was by far the largest dinosaur park on Earth. It featured more than 100 different life-size statues of dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures, and also had a dedicated area to mythical beasts too, which during the 1970s had the world...
Okay, but this park looks a little bit sad, right? Here is a dinosaur, there is one, and there is one, but of course it's old and abandoned, but it looks a little bit sad, to be honest.
The largest King Kong statue that was more than 40 feet tall. The problem the dinosaur park faced, however, was that the only attractions it had were the statues and several smaller rides, and simply couldn't compete with larger amusement parks.
Of course.
By the turn of the millennium...
Exactly what I said. It's a little bit boring maybe, so you come there once, but not a second or a third time, and some people are in general not interested to just see it or just look at some statues, so yeah.
Visitor numbers had begun to plummet, with the park seen as a prehistoric entertainment venue by modern standards, and it was forced to close for good in 2005.
But is there not another park who's interested in these, dinosaurs? Just and drive them to another amusement park. Buy them for a cheap price. Why not? Okay, they're still standing there. I don't know. Because maybe the statues itself are not that good. I don't know.
Statues were left in place though, and in many ways it's now more interesting than it...
Yeah, okay, they look a little bit dead. What the frick? Who was riding that on that cow on that dinosaur? Of course, yeah, they do not look that good, to be honest, and not that realistic. So I don't think that any amusement park do want these dinosaurs actually.
Ever was when it was open. Most of them still stand in place, surrounded by unkempt vegetation, and it feels like you've entered a lost world. Number 13, Disney's River Country, Florida. There's no doubt that Disney has built the most famous and successful amusement park empire in the world.
Yeah, definitely.
Despite the company's
and the first amusement park, they want to be like Disneyland, yeah, these Japan Disney World. So this is the idol Disney World because it's the most successful. But maybe to be successful, maybe you have to do something new and do not copy something successful which already exists, you know?
Experience in this industry, even they don't get it right every time. Disney World in Florida is by far the biggest collection of parks on Earth. You probably know that it includes 2 water parks, but did you know that there was originally a third?
Yeah, I have been to Florida too. I was in Orlando, like in Universal Studios, Busch Gardens, that SeaWorld thingy. Like, yeah, I have been to all these amusement parks there.
Called Disney's River Country. It was actually the company's first water park and opened in June of 1976. It was built along the shore of Bay Lake and had a Wild West theme and featured 2 large swimming pools, 5 water slides, and 2 large areas dedicated to children's activities. It was the success of River Country that led to the development of Typhoon Lagoon and Blizzard Beach. But with far more planning and investment going into those 2, River Country was soon seen as the least exciting of them all. With falling visitor numbers and several deaths that happened on site, it closed at the end of the 2001 season and was never reopened.
Always finances, yeah. 2 less customers, 2 less money, so and when it's not profitable, yeah, of course they do not proceed with a amusement park. Yeah?
Structures of the park still remain to this day, however, albeit in a rundown state. The only thing Disney did was to drain one of the larger pools and erect fencing around the site to prevent anyone from gaining access. But in recent years, it's become a popular destination for urban explorers. It's creepy seeing a place that was designed for so many thousands of people being completely empty, with stagnant pools of water and crumbling slides.
It has its own vibe. To go to through these streets, a place, he already said it, who was designed for a lot of people. It's completely empty, ghost town. This is like, yeah, this is interesting. I have never been to a real lost place, never, but maybe I have to.
And while it may not have been demolished yet, there are rumors that the company eventually plans on completely redeveloping the site, perhaps as an extension to another park or as a brand new hotel complex. Number 12, Boomers, Dania Beach. There are still 7 Boomers amusement parks in operation throughout California and Florida, but this is just a fraction of the number the company operated in its heyday, with at least 11 having been closed in recent years. Perhaps the most famous was the Dania Beach Park, which was in Fort Lauderdale and was home to what was once the largest wooden roller coaster in the state. Known as the Hurricane, it was 100 feet tall, 3,200 feet long, and was by far the most impressive structure on the site, but surprisingly wasn't actually owned by Boomers.
In Germany, I have been on the wooden roller coaster too, and it's very nice, it's very fast, and I like it, but it's very shaky all the time and very hard, because it's like wood.
And was run by a third party. After opening the ride in 2000, they soon...
But the other ones are made out of steel. But I don't know, this one in Germany is so... It's a little bit uncomfortable. You know, more uncomfortable than usual roller coasters. Okay, I'm talking bullshit now, but maybe you know what I mean.
Found out there was a reason why Florida doesn't have many wooden coasters. And that's because the humid climate significantly increases the maintenance requirements, and it became commercially unviable.
Yeah, maintenance is very, very, very stressful and expensive for wooden roller coaster. You always have to renew because, yeah, it's wood.
The coaster itself was closed in 2011, and the rest of the park, with its mini golf course and arcades, followed suit in 2015. And for several years, the site was left to crumble. Urban explorers managed to capture incredible images of what the place looked like as it began to be overtaken by fast-growing trees.
Of course, when the main attraction, this wooden roller coaster, closed, the whole park is like nobody wants to go there because the main attraction is away.
Trees and shrubs, and it was only finally demolished a few years later to be replaced by a shopping mall.
Shopping mall.
Number 11, Dunblobin, Crinkly Bottom, England. It's not uncommon for an amusement park to be based upon an entertainment brand, but Crinkly Bottom in England was probably the most unusual example of this ever. taking inspiration from a popular Saturday night entertainment
This is just creepy. This is just scary. Which kid wants to go there?
show at the time. Crinkly Bottom's mascot was Mr. Blobby, a giant spotty pink creature that became renowned in the country for his madcap antics. 3 parks were actually opened in the 1990s.
No, this is a creature I have in my biggest nightmares, you know?
With the biggest being located in Somerset. Dunblobin, a recreation of Mr. Blobby's house, became one of the focal aspects of the
No, I don't want to go into Mr. Blobby's house.
park. But due to lack of interest, the funding was
He's fishing here. Very cozy here. In his chair, and here is he fishes.
pulled less than a year after opening, and the park removed all references to the character. As for his home, it was sealed off and forgotten about until the 2000s, when a group of urban explorers rediscovered it. It didn't matter that it had fallen into such a state of disrepair, and as such, a nostalgic link to the 90s. What remained of Dunblobin became a site for illegal raves and parties, and the polystyrene toilet was even removed and placed on display in an art gallery. For fear of injuries and lack of control over what was happening there, the landowner was eventually forced to demolish the entire site. And sadly, Dunblobin was removed for good. Number 10. Yongma-land, South Korea. Built in the 1980s, Yongma-land was a small
I have never heard of any of these parks. Let's see if there is a park I have heard before.
family-focused amusement park near Seoul in South Korea. It was full of pop culture icons from the time and underwent very little development by the time it finally closed its doors in 2011, which meant it remained a memory of times gone by. Attendance had drastically fallen thanks to the opening of modern theme parks nearby and stories of hauntings. But rather than demolishing the site or preventing anyone from accessing it, it's now gained a new lease of life by welcoming visitors who want to see the park in its ongoing state of decay. With an octopus ride covered in rust, to stacks of broken Dodgem cars.
Yeah, but you can still move it. It has to be very, very exciting to be there on a lost place and to explore all these old rusty things. But I do not understand why is there, when it's like, okay, now it's very old and rusty, but when it just closed, why is there nobody who wants to have these things, or another amusement park who can use these things? Yeah, maybe just buy new things. Sometimes it's easier. Yeah. But I hate to throw things away, to throw things in the trash, you know? So I want to find a use for anything again. Yeah.
A broken down clown,
but it's very naive, of course.
Roller coaster and a collapsing Viking ship. The new owner charges around $5 for entry, and for $30 will even turn on the lights of the haunted merry-go-round in the evening. Those familiar with K-pop music videos may recognize the faded colors and broken machinery from some recent hits, as it's also often hired out for creepy location shoots for various productions. It's the only former amusement park in the world that's still open to guests and has now become a spooky attraction in its own right. Number 9. Hau Thai Tien, Vietnam. With an incredible 3-story tall dragon aquarium at the center of the park, Hau Thai Tien was set to be the next big thing when it opened in Vietnam in 2004. The water park was built around a lake with the focal feature in the middle, and as you walked up the central staircase, you'd find yourself surrounded by tanks that contained a wide variety of animals, including rays, sharks, and even crocodiles. The problem, though, was that with costs escalating, the investors in the $3 million park insisted that it opened before it was fully complete, and this led to an underwhelming response by visitors. Within a few years, it was no longer sustainable, and it was closed, and with no funds left to demolish any of the structures, they were left in place. Even the animals in the aquarium were simply released into the lake, which led to a large crocodile population establishing itself in the following years. Hau Thai Tien, which was once easy to get to, was removed from all the guidebooks and access was restricted, meaning only those who knew exactly where it was were able to return. There was something about the dragon building which had begun to crumble that seemed majestic amongst its surroundings.
It looks really nice. I just wanted to say it looks really, really nice.
It became such a popular destination that there were even reports of a refreshment truck offering drinks to visitors inside the perimeter of the abandoned venue. As for the crocodiles, they remained an ever-present threat to the people who took the risk of visiting, and authorities were eventually forced to relocate them to a nearby wildlife park, although this hardly means the polluted water is now safe to swim in.
Okay. Guys, we make the shout out for today. Shout out goes out to user KW50. You see the name. Thank you very much for your comment. Thank you for your support. If you want to get a shout out in the next video, and every video I do one shout out, just write a comment down below and maybe you will get the shout out. Thank you.
Dadi Park in Moerslid, Belgium, was first opened in the 1950s as a small playground to entertain the children of pilgrims who were visiting the local church, but became so popular that in the 1970s underwent a program of redevelopment to install a series of new attractions, such as a huge monkey bridge course and several water rides. This brought new visitors from far and wide. At its peak, saw more than 1 million guests passing through the turnstiles each year.
Okay.
As tastes began to change, however, the park's popularity declined, and the final straw came as a result of years of underinvestment. The rides became more and more dangerous, and in 2000, a young boy lost his arm as a result of an accident on the Nordic jet ride.
Okay, this is the worst what can happen to an amusement park, when someone dies or when someone has a big injury and it goes through the press and on the newspaper and that stuff. So security, as I said, safety is number one in amusement parks. So this is the worst thing that can happen when somebody hurts. So make a amusement park. If you ever want to open a amusement park, make sure that the park is safe, okay?
The park never recovered, and within 2 years it was permanently closed.
Because everybody is afraid then to go there. When you see, okay, there are like unsafe spots and the rides are not safe, nobody wants to go on that ride because it's very risky, of course.
The larger rides were taken down over the next few years, but most of the other structures...
Oh, and there's like the forest is getting back, the amusement park, there are bushes everywhere. This is nice.
Were left in place.
Yeah.
Now overgrown, you can hardly tell that it used to be such a busy park. The only clues of what used to be there are the occasional metal railings and derelict buildings. It's become famous within the urban explorer community for the relative ease of access and the unusual objects that remain, many of which have religious influences. But because the authorities became concerned by an increasing number of people who were trespassing on the site, they've continued to demolish more of the buildings. Plans are now underway to convert it into a hiking trail.
Oh
Number
my
7,
gosh.
Ghost Town in the Sky, North Carolina. First opened in May of...
Okay, this is the first thing I have heard of. Yeah, in the mountains, there's this abandoned park. This was also a park where you can go on the summit of a mountain and you have some attractions there like this. But I think it closed because it was too far away from the civilization, you know. So of course a park has to be reachable.
1961, the Ghost Town in the Sky was a Wild West theme amusement park in Maggie Valley, North Carolina. Built at an elevation of around 4,600 feet at the top of Buck Mountain, it was often called North Carolina's Mile High Theme Park. Built at a cost of $1 million, the owners enlisted the help of locals to faithfully recreate 40 replica buildings for the western town, and over the years went on to build several rides, which included, as of 1986, a full-size roller coaster called the Red Devil. Right from the start, the park experienced issues, however. Despite attracting at its peak more than 600,000 visitors each year, there was no actual public road to access it.
What the frick? No public road. So when a park is not good to reach, of course it won't work.
Instead, every guest had to...
People are lazy. They want it comfortable. You have to make it as easy as possible for people, that they buy it, that they go there, because people in general, they hate complicated things. Me too. I hate to have like stressful moments, stressful things in life. I hate it. I just want to be comfortable. Everything has to be easygoing. Of course.
Arrive at a car park at the base of the mountain and use either a funicular railway or a 3,300-foot-long chairlift to reach it. In 2002, the chairlift failed and left people stuck for more than 2 hours, and this ultimately led to the park's closure. Very little has been spent for maintenance.
Idea was good, but no, this is too harsh, okay? To get stuck there in the middle of the mountain, no.
On any of the machinery, and the owners realized how dangerous it had all become, despite an attempt to reopen in 2006.
Just have a public road to that and a big parking lot, and then it would work.
After extensive renovations, the Ghost Town in the Sky closed its doors for good in 2009. and has been left to fall into an even worse state of disrepair ever since. There are still hopes that the investment will be found to try to reopen it again, which means that for the time being...
But you have to refurnish everything. It's old. You can like get rid of everything and just build new. I don't know that anybody wants to buy it, and there is still no public road. Come on. So I don't think that anyone wants to buy it and go that risky step, you know? And it costs a lot of time.
It's been left to rust away and has become a thing of legend in urban explorer circles.
But it looks so nice, these ghost town in the middle of the mountains, and it looks creepier than the other abandoned amusement parks, in my opinion.
Because of the difficulty of accessing the site.
Yeah.
It's now just like an abandoned and haunted Wild West village. And the moment you set foot there, it feels like you've been transported back in time.
But can you get there now? These are like drone shots, but can you get there when there's no public road to this? You have to go on your own, like hiking there. But is it possible to reach?
Number 6, Pripyat Amusement Park.
Pripyat.
When amusement parks open for the first time, it's often caused...
Pripyat! Yeah, I have heard of. It's like near Chernobyl. Yeah, Chernobyl amusement park. Yeah, this is the second I have heard of. There are like these nice pictures, but it is abandoned, of course, because of the, of the big explosion of the reactor.
For huge excitement and celebration to the local community, who were able to take advantage of the new facilities for the first time. In the case of the newly built Pripyat Amusement Park, however, this anticipation soon evaporated because just days before the official opening, something terrible happened.
Days before the official opening, it wasn't open for even one day. Oh my gosh.
It was April of 1986, and with the final touches of paint still drying, the park was ready for the grand opening at the beginning of May. Early in the morning on the 26th of April, one of the worst nuclear accidents to ever take place happened at the nearby Chernobyl power plant. And this meant that not only was the opening canceled, but the entire city of Pripyat was evacuated, and had never been repopulated since because of radiation levels. At the center of the amusement park was an 85-foot tall Ferris wheel that's become an iconic image of the effect.
It wasn't used once.
Of the disaster on the local community, and it still stands in its place to this day. The other rides are still there too. Apart from during tests, they were never open to the general public. The open space was used by helicopters in the aftermath of...
It's still evacuated there, right? It's not possible to live there because of the radiation, right?
The accident, which meant that higher levels...
I don't know when it's possible again. Like in Fukushima too. When is it possible again to live there?
...of radiation were deposited there than elsewhere. And tests have shown that the concrete areas are still highly dangerous. Still, if you're feeling brave enough, it's possible to take tours through the ghost city of Pripyat, and the amusement park is one of the most impactful stops along the route. Number 5, Spree Park, Berlin. Berlin's
third one, I have heard one of that one, because it's a German one. I'm from Germany, you know, guys, and yeah, I've heard of. It was like in the DDR. It was an amusement park.
Spree Park was one of the most visited attractions in the city, with more than 1.5 million visitors each year. But poor financial management meant that it would eventually be forced to close, and has since become an abandoned wilderness. It was first opened in 1969 to much excitement, especially because of the towering Ferris wheel. Following the reunification of Germany in 1989, huge investment was used to put it on par with Western-style parks, with roller coasters, water rides, and several themed village areas.
And the guy who owned this park was very weird. I think he went to jail then, and he wanted to go to Peru or something. A very weird story.
In the 90s that it reached its heyday. The lack of transport to the park, though, meant that they were never able to attract enough people to recoup the huge investment.
Yeah, you have to go with the time, okay? When you're like in one year very successful, it doesn't mean that you're like successful in the next year, because it's always changing. YouTube is the same. Do not hold on old times where you were successful and do the same. Sometimes you have to change to stay successful. It's very important.
And with spiraling debts, Spree Park was closed in 2002. Some of the rides were shipped to Peru to try to open a new park, while the buildings that remained were left to fall apart. While there are plans to try to renovate the site and reopen it, for now it remains a memory of what once was. And it's occasionally open for performances, festivals, and screenings of movies that benefit from the creepy surroundings. Number 4. Six Flags New Orleans. Originally opening as Jazzland in the year 2000, Six Flags took control of the amusement park on the outskirts of New Orleans in 2003. They had high hopes for what they could do with the venue, but unfortunately it was flooded during Hurricane Katrina, which was responsible for so much pain and suffering in the city. As for the theme park, it took a month before the floodwaters receded, and by that time the site had been ruined. Faced with a bill of tens of millions of dollars to fix things, since more than 80% of the buildings and virtually all of the rides had been destroyed, Six Flags instead removed all salvageable assets and reinstalled them in other parks. Now covered in graffiti in every direction, infested with rodents and overgrown, it's now become a popular destination for urban explorers, and it's been used as a location in a number of movies, including Jurassic World and...
That's a big bubble, big thing on YouTube, like these urban explorers who want to always explore lost places, and I think it's very interesting. I haven't done it yet, but it's very interesting to see these videos.
Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Number 3. Joyland, Kansas. Opened in 1949 and only closing 55 years later in 2004, Joyland was once the premier amusement park in Kansas. It had 25 rides, including an amazing wooden roller coaster called Nightmare.
Yeah, amazing. It's cool maybe, but it's very small, to be honest. Just to be honest, yeah.
Along with a number of other classic designs from the 40s and 50s. Problems began in 2004 with the aging infrastructure, which began when a young girl fell from the more than half-a-century-old Ferris wheel. The ensuing investigations found that many of the other structures were unsafe too, and it would have cost so much to fix these problems that the decision was made to close the park for good. Since that day, the
safety, guys. You can close your whole doors when anything happens.
Park has remained in place, and apart from a couple of fires that have destroyed buildings and the inevitable vegetation that's begun to grow over everything, it's still recognizable as Joyland, although in a frighteningly run-down state. This might not be the end of the story, though, because the site was sold in 2018 for just under $200,000, and it's quite possible that the new owners will complete the plans for renovations to find a way to open it once more. Number 2. Camelot, UK. Whether or not you believe in the legend of King Arthur, there's one thing for sure: Camelot most certainly did exist, albeit as a small theme park in England that was opened between 1983 and 2012.
Yeah, it looks nice. I think these amusement parks who like focusing just on one movie or one story, it's very difficult to keep them interesting because it's just one movie. People who do not know this movie in general, they are not interested in that park. And when you have visited it once, I don't know if you visit it again, because it's just one movie. Like Disneyland has included so many movies because it's the whole Disney universe. But to have like just a Camelot, it's like, yeah, it will stay very, very small all the time because it's just focused on one movie and one story.
Around the
one legend.
Visitors entered the huge castle when they first arrived and had a choice of a wide range of rides, just like you'd expect from the best parks. 2012 proved to be a tough year, though, and with a continued trend of reducing visitor numbers, the park was forced to close. Some of the rides were sold to other parks.
It's very bad to be dependent on one movie.
The rest were left standing, and in some cases were still visible from the near.
And it's an old movie. I don't know if the young people are watching like these movies as well. So just be independent of one movie, or just do an amusement park like Universal Studios. Universal Studios has like included a bunch of movies as well, like Spider-Man, Simpsons, King Kong, like everything. And there's always one movie which is loved by anyone, you know?
By motorway. It's now one of the creepiest abandoned parks you'll ever see, mainly thanks to the fantasy-style theme it had, and how this now looks after the buildings have begun to decay. Plants have begun to grow all over the structures.
Guys.
Walking through, you'd almost believe you had
no spot is safe for graffiti sprayers.
Been transported to a long-forgotten time in history.
And it's raining, of course, like in the UK, like every day.
You can never quite be sure what you'll find around each corner.
Yeah.
Number 1. Wonderland, China. It's no surprise that after seeing how successful an amusement park can be, various companies decide to try to cash in by building one of their own. Of course, it's not quite as easy as it may seem, and the investors behind Wonderland in Beijing, China, definitely bit off more than they could chew. The idea was that it would become the largest amusement park in Asia across a more than 120-acre site, and they do this by
Always castles. They love castles. Amusement park. No amusement park without castles. They love castles. But Disneyland is not the only amusement park.
copying what had been proven to work elsewhere. Problems began in the construction phase, though, and in 1998 work was halted because of financial irregularities. Attempts to start construction again in 2008 failed too, in the wake of further financial difficulties, and all dreams of finishing the project were dashed. It remained, however, with the shell of a castle and a number of other incomplete structures that became an attraction in their own right for people wanting to imagine what could have been.
Yeah.
Local farmers
I think to explore these places are very interesting too. Very interesting.
who had been forced to sell their land for the park began to take it back.
I think this building has not that many visitors and it's not financially clever because there is no entrance. Then it wouldn't be like urban exploring or a lost place when there would sit someone and collecting money. But in general, for some people to watch and to imagine what could be is...
and grow their crops there, and soon very little remained. It was bizarre to see a magical world in the middle of nowhere with no actual magic, and eventually authorities wanted to be rid of the failed project. The remaining structures were demolished in 2013, and now a shopping mall stands in place of where the castle once was.
Really? Okay guys, this is all for today with the scary abandoned amusement parks. I hope you enjoyed the video. It was very interesting today. Subscribe to my channel. My name is Mats. We are the Hey Squad guys. Thanks for watching and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.